Alright guys, today I wanted to have a little fun and do a follow-up video to my last video poking fun of some of Dungeons & Dragons 5e's rules as written, which if you haven't seen, I'll put a link down in the description box below for you to check out after this video. But nevertheless, today I have 8.5 more of the absolute worst rules as written for D&D 5e for us to poke fun of and, remind us how much we love our dungeon masters for ignoring some of these. Also, if you're playing a lot of Adventurers League where everything has to be taken literally, it's nice to know these things. If you want to play a little game, slide down to the argument section below and let us know, which one of these rules you were the most surprised by, and we'll see, which of them is really the most shocking to the community. Starting right out of the gate, we have an incredibly broken feature for you kobold lovers to use and abuse. And as far as I can tell, and I did try to dig into things for this video, this is 100% legal in Adventurers League still. Though I don't play League games, so I might have missed something, but I don't think I did. Rules as written. A kobold PC who takes the ritual caster feat can get permanent advantage on melee attacks. Full stop. Yes, it's true, but how does it work? Pretty easy. First off, for this combo, we need to look at the kobold player race traits from Volo's guide with the racial trait pack tactics. Quote, you have advantage on an attack roll against a creature if at least one of your allies is within 5 feet of the creature and the ally isn't incapacitated, end quote. So yes, technically this works for ranged attacks, but we're focusing on melee for the moment in this video. Then we need to get the Find Familiar spell. The easiest way for melee heavy classes is the Ritual Caster feat, though technically Magic Initiate would also work, but wouldn't be as good really for our purposes. Then, we profit. All we need to do is summon us up a weasel to keep in our pocket, and we now have advantage on every single attack we make, as we will always have an ally within 5 feet of our target. And to confirm this, I will point you to the Wizards of the Coast website, where they very specifically clarify that yes, familiars do in fact count specifically as allies. So, enjoy your next Kobold Paladin in Adventurers League or, home table and laugh like a maniac as you smite everything forever, ever into dust with all of those awesome critical smites. Rule number 2 is pretty much going to do the exact opposite for monstrous race-loving players, as it's going to make playing the Grung a little less fun. Because rule number 2 is that rules as written, the Grung can technically jump itself to death. Yes, you heard that right. According to the rules, it's only a matter of time before the happy little Grung ends up, breaking its own neck with overzealous jumping. But how does this work? Simple. The Grung, both as a playable race and the monster stat block from Volo's Guide to Monsters, has a racial trait called Standing Leap. This gives them a high jump, aka jump straight up in the air, of 15 feet. Why is that a problem? Oh, because on page 183 in the player's handbook, we get a teeny little rule called falling. Yes, that's right. A fall of more than 10 feet, aka a 15-foot high jump from a Grung celebrating their birthday party, would mean that said Grung would in fact take 1d6 fall damage. And therefore, a low-level Grung player or even a normal 11 hit point Grung could jump themselves to death after 1 or 2 high jumps. As they say, what goes up must come down, right? And truth be told, maybe this rule isn't that far off basis. I'll never forget watching Kevin Ware, a former Louisville basketball player, getting one of the worst injuries I've ever seen that I would 100% not recommend you look up. Spoiler alert, he jumps up, and when he lands, his leg snaps in half. But yeah, perhaps maybe the super jumpy frog race should be better equipped to land from jumping in a game where you can fly around on brooms and survive boulders being hurled at you from 18-foot giants. Our third absurd rule as written is one that frankly will piss off a lot of dungeon masters out there who have made the horrible mistake of allowing their players to take the lucky feat, or, who run games for Adventurers League where you don't have a choice of what feat your players take. And that's that rules as written, if you have the lucky feat, it is better for your character to simply close their eyes while attacking an enemy than it is for you to skillfully attempt to strike that enemy. That's 100% rules as written and confirmed by the game's designers. But how does it work? Simply put, the lucky feat allows you to roll one additional die whenever you make an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. One additional die. Then you get to pick which die to use after the result. Well, if we close our eyes and give ourselves disadvantage, then we now get to roll 3 dice, 2 for disadvantage and 1 for lucky, and then choose which of the 3 dice we want to use. Now, in fairness, I would be remiss to leave out that Jeremy Crawford has gone on record that he personally runs it more of a rules as intended, with the disadvantage being a separate roll from the lucky roll. But again, this is not the official rules as written and confirmed to us. That's just his personal house rule. But I mean, he is a game designer for 5e, so, full context. Next up, we have a house rule as written that is just plain silly. And that's that wizards cannot technically practice higher level spells at all unless someone else writes it out for them. Yeah, this is a really strange catch-22 for how wizards learn and practice spells. First off, rules as written, a wizard can only cast leveled spells in one of 2 ways: from their own spell book or from a scroll. Wands don't count here because they're technically using charges from the wand, and that's really a whole different thing. Here's the problem. According to the rules, wizards cannot copy spells into their spell book, to practice, unless they are a level for which the wizard can already cast. So if you're a level 3 wizard, and you come across a fireball spell in another spell book, you can't do anything with it. And so this sort of sheds a whole new light on what it's like to attend a wizard academy, right? I mean, the wizard professor comes into the class and, starts like writing out a level 2 invisibility spell on the board, and the students are just like, what are we gonna do with that? We can't cast that, we can't copy that, we're not level 3 yet. This is particularly funny when you consider the fact that you can cast, or at least attempt to cast, a higher level spell from a scroll with an ability check. So technically, if a higher level wizard traveled on adventures with a lower level wizard, the higher level wizard couldn't teach the lower level wizard anything that the lower level wizard couldn't cast at that level. But because the lower level wizard could learn theoretically different spells than the higher level wizard has, when they level up, the lower level wizard could absolutely teach the higher level wizard new spells for the higher level wizard spell book that the lower level wizard just sort of figured out on their own. Next up, we have a terrible house rule pointed out to me by a viewer after my aforementioned video on rules as written, that is one of those odd consequences that can kind of happen during game design, that the faster your 5e character is, the slower they become when trying to stand up. I'm not even going to throw too much criticism here at the 5e design team because I really like how to calculate how much movement it takes to stand. It's half your movement speed. It's really easy to remember. Now, opportunity attacks, that's a different story. But nonetheless, this is a very odd rule here that penalizes faster characters more than slower ones, as standing up from prone, again, takes half of your movement speed. So, if my character moves 40 feet in a round, it'll take me 20 full feet of my movement to get to my feet. But if my speed is just 20 feet from, not being strong enough for my heavy armor, it'll only take me 10 feet of movement to stand up. Having a bulky, heavy, armor-clad dwarf stand up faster at half the speed that it takes a nimble elven monk to stand up, that's just an absurd rule as written. Rule number 6 is easily the funniest rule on our list today, and will 100% break rules as intended, as you can completely stun lock any ooze in the game with a movement speed of 10 with a single use of your caltrops. Rules as written. The caltrops say, quote, any creature that enters the area must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity saving throw or stop moving this turn and take 1 piercing damage. Taking this damage reduces the creature's walking speed by 10 feet until the creature regains at least 1 hit point. Technically, that leaves them with, taking the dash action or the attack action because their movement speed is 0, but you guys get the gist. Now, some might argue that the jelly slides over the caltrops, but rules as written, you are going to lock that jelly in place in Adventurers League games. As the DM at my table, I might even let a player do this once just for the giggles, but yeah, this is 100% going to end up being rules as intended instead of rules as written. But it also kind of raises a bit of a question about the physiology of the ooze, right? I mean, while it doesn't take full damage by having someone like swing a sword at it, it does take damage when something breaks its like skin. So maybe it's like a pudding skin, right? That you leave out too long. Then, if the ooze, jelly, or pudding slides over the top of a 5-foot square filled with a bunch of like sharp caltrops putting its weight on them, maybe it would find the experience to be at least unpleasant. Just a little food for thought. Rule number 7 is one that I will tell you all now purely exists for game balance purposes. There is no other reason that this exists, but because the game designers painted themselves into this corner. Rules as written, you may ready a spell that takes one full action, but not one that takes a bonus action. Additionally, you may cast a slower one-action spell with your action, but you may not cast a theoretically faster bonus action spell with that same longer period of an action. In the first case, with readying, I believe that this is a direct answer to nerf a spell that I have argued for years is overpowered as hell, though other players and even some of my colleagues here on YouTube don't seem to see just how strong it is with the spell Healing Word. If you could, in theory, ready a bonus action spell, then you could just ready Healing Word with the trigger that the moment someone in your party drops to 0, you'll cast it on them, getting them right back up, and you could do that in between attacks of monsters with multi-attack. And it's really the only reason why you can't ready a bonus action spell, in my opinion. I mean, you can already ready a full movement action to move away as someone comes near you in order to keep your distance. So even a really powerful bonus action spell like Misty Step, which is incredible, would be silly for the designers not to want you to be able to ready that spell. It's just here, this rule, because of Healing Word. The second part of this, though, is even more absurd, because a spell that takes an action should easily take longer to cast than a bonus action spell, right? Well, then that might confuse some players who want to use 2 bonus actions instead of a bonus and a full action. A great example here would be a cleric that currently has Spiritual Weapon up, which, as a bonus action, they can move and attack with it. And if that cleric wanted to attack something with its spiritual weapon as a bonus action, and then cast out our favorite spell, Healing Word, to pick an ally back up from 0 from a safe distance, they could not do that, rules as written. However, they could attack with that same bonus action with spiritual weapon, and then walk over to their dying friend, bend down to touch them while casting a full action spell, Cure Wounds, on them in that same time frame that they couldn't just cast a verbal only Healing Word. I guess the gods of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition really don't want people casting Healing Word too easily. Perhaps it's because it's a little overpowered for a single bonus action spell. Next up, we have a rule that is, simply put, a hilarious oversight, but rules as written, 100% true. According to the Vision and Light rules in Chapter 8 of the Player's Handbook, you can hide from a warlock with Devil's Sight better in a room that has a lit candle than you can in magical darkness or just daylight. This is all because Devil's Sight, the warlock invocation, reads as follows, quote, "You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 120 feet. But nowhere in there does it mention dim light, like the kind of lighting given off buy a candle. There's not much left to say than, you know, after several printings of the player's handbook now, where they have gone in and corrected stuff, the fact that this hasn't been very easily corrected yet is, you know, it's a little baffling, and thus must be considered a design feature 6.5 years into the game. And finally, we have a sort of bonus ruling here that I will fully admit is rules as interpreted maybe a bit more than rules as written with the mounted Centaur. The strange thing the designers did with the Centaur is that they made them small, like very small. They're not horses really at all. In fact, they are medium creatures and have, quote, a wither of about 4 feet. That means that the closest equity, aka horse family, for the 5e Centaur would be the pony, not the horse. And even with that information, we're talking about a pretty short pony in order to get the length under a healthy, let's say 55 inches for a medium creature that should comfortably fit in a roughly 60-inch square space or so. All of this leads, of course, to the hilarious revelation that centaurs, as medium creatures, qualify to use riding horses as mounts, as the riding horse is, quote, a willing creature that is at least one size larger than you and has the appropriate anatomy. Now, of course, that's really the kicker right there, right? The appropriate anatomy. Well, first off, is the appropriate anatomy here something that is needed from just the horse? Because if so, check, we riding that bad boy. Or maybe the appropriate anatomy is for both the rider and the mount, because if so, you could still argue that the pony is clearly short enough, as we have scientifically proven that we are short enough to sit atop the length of a full-grown horse and just, you know, ride the horse no problems. Or, for purely academic sake of the topic in this video, I also see no reason why a special saddle couldn't easily be devised if for some reason the thought of going bareback with just a bridle isn't good enough for your dungeon master. And once again, we ride that bad boy. I mean, you know, the horse. I meant we're riding the horse, of course. The horse, of course. Just to take this theory one step further, I present to you that rules as written, the only way a centaur can wield a lance with one hand, which the rules require you to be mounted in order to do so, as listed on page 148 in the player's handbook, and wield a shield in the second hand, is if your centaur character is in fact mounted, thereby implying, in my humble opinion, that the design team left room here for the centaur riding a horse into battle. I rest my case. All of this, of course, is to just have a laugh at rules as written, because sometimes, you know, game design is hard, right? But now, I want to pass it over to you in the community. What rules did we miss here today? What nonsense has gone too long without the spotlight on it? Did any of the rules, by the way, surprise you guys? Let me know in the comments down below. If this is your first time here and you love role-playing games as much as I do, or you're learning to love role-playing games as much as I do, I would love to have you subscribe. I put out videos on GM tips, player tips, tutorials, and more fun nonsense like this. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in, just hit the subscribe button down below and come join us. Also, if you're looking to jump into a game, I highly recommend the Taking 20 Discord. We have thousands and thousands of people over there, and we have channels for looking for group and places you can ask questions about D&D and Pathfinder and other games as well. So link to that down in the description also. I want to give a massive thank you to all of the incredible supporters over at WelcomeAdventures.com. Guys, thank you so much for everything you do. If you like this channel, you want to support more content like this, WelcomeAdventures.com is a great way to support the channel and, you know, pick up some sweet rewards for yourself. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Cody, and may your games be filled with awesome memories and even better friends. I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah.